That's right. Shalom, shalom, Yisrael, Yehonathan Dawid with you here.
I ain't started yet, you ready?
Shalom, shalom, Yisrael, Yehonathan Dawid with you here on what they call the 30th of May, 2021. Derek Ibar dropping it with Before the Wilderness. I actually should have did that song next week because next week was the last portion of Wayekra, what we call Leviticus, because then that's when they go off into the wilderness. But I just wanted to drop it to you a week early. I might do it again next week. Thank you, Mr. Ibar. Actually, thank you, Og Brian, because he's the one that hit me on to this man. Number 32, Behar. Now, I sent out on the media that I apologize to you. The internet was out last week. You know, the Prince of the Power of the Air is attacking a brother, especially on such a Kodesh time like Shavuot. So whenever there's an issue where you cannot hear the broadcast, it's still going on. It's on the regular radio. So you're going to have to go down the basement and get the dust off of your radio and find that. Or maybe listen to it in the car. And you can always go to the YouTube channel. All of these I'm recording right now to download this onto the YouTube channel. And thirdly, you can even reach me and get transcripts. So there's 3 ways of getting this message every week. You're not a slave to the internet. You heard the man saying going to the wilderness. Ain't gonna be no internet in the wilderness. Ain't gonna be none of this stuff. After that 6th seal earthquake. Behar on the mount. This is Torah portion number 32. Last week, about on Shavuot, Acts 1:8, Yahweh says that we are going to be his witnesses. Witnesses to what? To the Besorah, what you call the gospel. From now on, the only thing that matters is the Besorah. Okay? This is the message of Yahweh. This is what Shavuot was all about. And John 13, 1 through 17, Yahweh instituted a brand new, or let me say, a refreshed covenant. A refreshed covenant was instituted in John 13, 1 through 17, which is the foot washing. We went from blood to water. This is a refreshed covenant. The same covenant, just refreshed. Acts 2, 1 through 11 was the first sermon given by Peter of the Besorah, which is Yahweh Shua, which you call the gospel. In Exodus 19, 18 and 19, and then chapter 20, verses 18 and 19, Yahweh we were betrothed to him. We were about to be married to him, and he presented himself, and he started speaking with us, and we were afraid. He never meant to hit us upside the head with 613 stone commandments. But we're the ones that said, no, stop. Moshe, you talk to us. And then he went up there and he got him in stone and came down, and we broke it before we even got it, and it goes on from there. We find that 50 is a very important number. Shavuot is the 50th day of counting of the Omer. Counting of the Omer, when the last saint, the last Kadashim is counted, and only Yahweh knows the count. That's when this world ends. And that's what is significant about Shavuot. It's really the counting of the Omer. You are commanded. I didn't do it this year, and next year, Yahweh willing, it's going to be my first time really doing it. I'm going to literally count each day, because we're commanded to do that. When we get to day 50th, that's when is Shavuot. And we know that's a special number because the priests are supposed to retire, or commanded to retire at 50. It's a very physical job. That's why Yahweh doesn't have men with deformities and problems and issues physical issues of their bodies and their limbs because it's a physical job. And you preachers out there have a tough job. You have a difficult job. And the people who will follow you don't realize how tough it's just being a teacher is difficult. I can only imagine how tough it is to be a preacher. I don't say you should retire at 50 years old, but it is a physically demanding job. But Shavuot was important. A lot of great things happened throughout our history on Shavuot, including the Boaz's redeeming of Ruth, the judgment of Sodom and Gomorrah. And this thing of this refreshed covenant in Shavuot is not a new thing. If we was having a relationship with Yahweh, we could pick up the clues he's given us. And he gave it to us in Jeremiah 31:31, where he says about circumcising our hearts. That's the aha. Oh, I get it. It's not just about keeping 613 commandments. My heart needs to be circumcised. Yahushua was immersed by his cousin on Shavuot. Leviticus 26:13-28 and verses 40-42. We read that. And that's important. I want you to take time and read that again. Leviticus 26:13-28 and then verses 40-42. Because Yahweh talks about this judgment on us 7 times, multiplied by 7, counting from our exile in Babylon in 721 BC. When you do that, and then couple that with Ezekiel 4:4-6, when he laid on his left side for 390 days, and then on his right side for 40 days. Because we were 390 days, and used that for years, coming out of Babylon. If you multiply that by 7, like I referenced in Leviticus 26, you will get us to the year of around 2009. So 2009, when most of you out there learned about this Hebrew name Yahweh and his son Yahushua. As a matter of fact, y'all still learning Yahushua. I'm teaching that to the world now. But most of you only got about 12 years in this thing. No more than 12 years in this thing. And if some of you were a little early, you may have 20 years in this. If you came in around year 2000, when the internet was really, when people started having in their own homes internet service regularly. So most of you are very new, and the Erev Rav is in your camps. You have a lot of Erev Rav, a lot of Esau, and a lot of these camps that's giving you misinformation. They're poison inside of your camps. And that's why you're coming out with all different kinds of names and all kinds of weird doctrine, because you're new. And you're products of the internet, and you have not really studied like this brother has, who had this in the 80s. Okay? 2 score into this thing. And most of you came out into this in around the year 2009. And you know it. And very few of you even got into the year 2000. And I know none of you out there who was in here in the 80s doing this. And to see, the thing about your awakening of who you are, it mirrors that of depression. You know, when they say depression starts off with denial, and it's the same thing with the Hebrew awareness. You're in denial. What? No way am I one of the people of the book. What? Me? We're the people of the book? And then comes anger. Then you're angry because you realize you've been lied to. Everything you've known, you've been taught in Sunday school is a lie. So you get angry. And unfortunately, too many of us are still stuck in that angry stage. You see it on the internet, you see it on social media, and we out there blasting the white man, blasting the Jews, hating this person, hating that person, and you need to stop it and get out of that. You need to get out of that anger mode, because there's sinfulness. That's sinfulness. It's not righteous anger. And we're angry with our spouses, our children, our bosses, our neighbors. We just hate everybody, hate everything. That has its place. Anger has its place, but you don't abide in it. You don't rest in it. You don't put your stakes in it and stay there. You move on. The next stage after anger is depression. And what happens is it's natural to get depressed, because now no one is where you are. They don't realize that they're the people of the book. They don't realize that they've been lied to. You're depressed because you're alone. You're all alone. Then comes reconstruction. Then you say, okay, you know what? You pass. This is if you're healthy, okay? You got to go through this healthy progression. Then you progress to being reconstruction. You reorder your life and how you live your life. You make it work. You do the work of your new knowledge, your newfound knowledge. You work in it. Put it into work. You're not just saved by grace and you keep doing what you did before you realize that you are a Hebrew and all the people in this book are so-called black. Then when you do that, then you have acceptance because you have hope into your future. It's not relying on your wife or your children or your neighbor or your boss or anybody else agreeing or believing. You move on. And that's what Yahweh for Christians is trying to do, is trying to realize that, hey, listen, you Christians have more, you Christians who read this KJV believe more like a Hebrew than you realize. You just don't realize it. If you can get those damnable slave names out of your head, out of your heart. It's a shame that we hate everything about slavery except the Lord God Jesus Christ. No one touts and praises the goodness of slavery, but you got the Lord God Jesus Christ in slavery. That's how you got him. He put the chains on you, and you're going to still keep him. So, but get out of the angry stage and move on. Isaiah 66, 5-24. A nation was born in a day. As great as your preaching may be, as great as the teachers, including myself, may be, we cannot unite us as a nation. I don't care what your hat and your t-shirt and all this good sloganeering you got going on. We will not be a nation until Yahweh brings us together. He's the one that split us, and he's the one that can bring us back together. And that's going to be done in one day. 1 Corinthians 3, 6-8, and then 14-16. Shaul says that people are being still blinded by this stone blood covenant. It's a veil. It needs to be removed, just like when Moshe eventually, he did get his regular tone back. All that brightness eventually faded away. This covenant faded away on the third day resurrection of Yahweh Shua, HaMashiach. He's going to come back to receive those who have circumcised hearts. It's the heart that needs to be circumcised. Jeremiah 31:31 tells us, circumcised heart, having an intimate personal relationship with him that guides you in everything you do. Not saying we're still supposed to love your brother, and that's what this is about today. You're still supposed to do what you're supposed to do. I mean, I have my seats on right now. I'm not thinking I'm going to get to the kingdom because of it. See, the thing about it is, this image of the beast is going to be the Ark of the Covenant. Oh, did I drop one on you right there? Did your jaw drop? Are you numb? Because the whole world's going to be covered with this veil. And that beast with the 10 horns is apostate Yisrael. And the beast with the 2 horns is apostate Yehuda. Those who follow Yahweh with circumcised hearts, who have a daily working relationship with him, as I'm teaching here every week, are the ones that cannot be deceived. So we're going to move on to Behar, and it goes from Leviticus 25, verse 1 through 26, verse 2. And it's the next to the last portion in Wayekro. I'm telling you, I hope I've inspired your hearts to read this book, because it's all about how you need to be set apart and set aside for this special relationship with the one who created you. In verse 1, he says, on Mount Sinai. And what this means is that the entire Torah, also the entire, what we call the 5 books of Moshe, was given to Moshe all at one time in 40 days on the mount, orally. When you're reading these first 5 books, it is not in sequential order. It is not written as the way it happened. And it was not written for decades later, I think right before he died. And even all of it wasn't even written completely then. But this was all given orally within 40 days. He did it twice, because remember, he had to go up twice because we sinned. And he threw the commandments down the first time. So it was given to him orally in 40 days on the mount. In verse 10, Yahweh says, the land has been longing for Yah's chosen to take her. So the land has been waiting for us to take her, so we can have Kodesh people living Kodesh laws on her. Currently, there was people in idolatry and harlotry living on her, and it just depressed the land. So Yahweh had to teach us what's called Shemitah, which means release, and it is the Sabbath year. Every 7 days, the land is supposed to have rest, or every 7 years, it's supposed to have rest, just like you are not supposed to have rest every 7 days. The land is supposed to have rest every 7 years. It's called the Shemitah cycle. And it alludes to the 6,000 year of this world. When the world gets her rest, at the 6 days, 6,000 years, which we're coming up to very closely. And it's going to be climaxed by the millennial kingdom. So see how I'm trying to tie in all this so-called Old Testament stone stuff to the current day? I'm not trying to read this to hit your side here with 613 commandments saying you got to go in there and start, you just learned about Yahweh last year and now you got to circumcise yourself. No, that's a sin. If you're not circumcised, you stay not circumcised. That means that's what it means. Now you got to divorce your wife because she doesn't believe. No, you stay married to her. You're not supposed to do all these things. You're supposed to meet Yahweh where you are, where he found you, and keep everything the best that you can as practice. Like I said about my son putting on my Marine Corps uniform. Was he qualified now to go out to war because he had the uniform on looking like a hot mess? No, you're practicing. And the land is going to give her rest. Verse 3 says, 6 years we have of sowing and pruning and 1 year of rest. And then the land, we have to live in faith on that year and eat what naturally grows. This is a beautiful thing. The rest of the world, they call it laying their ground fallow and they rotate their crops. But they learned this from Yahweh, from him teaching us. No one else was doing this. It's a beautiful thing. Yahweh made the land. He knows how to maintain it, how to keep her strong and working, providing for us. So these laws are beautiful. I implore you, just sit down, take some time out, even just an hour a day, and read through these first 5 books and see if you don't start falling in love with Yahweh in a whole different way. And see, and then see if you can start recognizing Yahweh Shua in it. Because that's what it all is. It's all him. So this cycle of the sabbatical years also mirrors what's the end times. Because after the 7-year cycle, then you have 1 day, then you have Jubilee, which we just talked about Shavuot last week. Jubilee, throughout the history of mankind, every 50 years, something significantly and earth-changing happened. There's no way I got time to even go through that. I just showed you a few examples of great things that happened throughout the history on Shavuot. Well, the same thing is true for Jubilee. Every 50 years, something great happens. Something magnanimous and earth-changing. And it's amazing that the Jubilee comes on the 10th day of the 7th month, which is the Day of Atonement. I could spend a lot of time talking about that. The day of being humbled and afflicting yourself. Jubilee is an important thing to keep track of, which is why Hasatan changed the times of law, so we cannot keep track of the 50-year cycle. Let's turn to Luke 24:27. I'm going to read Luke 24:27 and 44. Verse 27 and then verse 44. And beginning at Moshe and all the prophets, he expounded to them in all the scriptures the things concerning himself. Now going down to verse 44. And he said to them, these are the words which I spoke to you while I was still with you, that all things must be fulfilled which were written in the law of Moshe and the prophets and the Psalms concerning me. See, Yahweh Shua is saying, in terms of these end times, everything in this book, and remember, there was no Brit Hadashah. There was no New Testament. Everything they were reading and talking about, when he said the word scriptures, he was saying the word Torah. He was talking about the Old Testament, and he said the prophets and the Psalms. That's what he says. It all spoke about him. So I'm giving you these Torah portions with maturity, wisdom, and discernment. You're supposed to see Yahweh Shua in all of this. You're supposed to see Yahweh Shua in all of this, and all of these discussions about the Torah portions, and about the law, and all this setting apart, and all the Leviticus, Exodus, all the commandments. You're supposed to see him in this. Let's read Hebrews 10 and 7. And it reads, Hebrews 10 and 7. Then I said, look, I have come. In the volume of the book, it is written of me to do your will, O Yahweh. And that is, I think Shaul wrote the book of Hebrews. And he quoted that from Psalms 40, 6 through 8. in the volume of the book, and there was no Brit Hadashah, there was no New Testament, the first letter of the New Testament getting written until over 50 years later, after the resurrection. So there was nothing written in what we call the New Testament. He was quoting quoting Psalm 46 through 8. In the volume of the book, which is what I'm reading to you every day, it's all about Yahweh Shua. All of it is about him. So I'm not yoking you with a bond of 613 commandments. What I'm doing is giving you Hakmah, wisdom, understanding, education on connecting it to your life today and how to live and walk and follow it today. Because it is still real and current today. Yahweh doesn't do anything that doesn't last olam. Historically, like I said, every 50 years, so we need to get an understanding of the timeline. Because in Jubilee, there's a redistribution of wealth, freedom, and of servants. And isn't that interesting? Because your release always, even though we've sinned and done evil and dirt, we were still released by Egypt, Babylon, Assyria, Persia, Greece, Rome. We didn't fight our way out of any of these enslavements. None of them. But were we ever released by Germany, Portugal, Spain, France, the British, or the English? Did they ever release us? No, they took us from our land, and then they took our land so we had nowhere to be released back to. Oh, they did release some people back to there, but it wasn't you. It wasn't you. They gave that land to someone else. And they did not follow the laws of Jubilee. Did we deserve to be in bondage? Yes, but not enslaved, because enslavement is worse. No one's soul belongs to another man. We deserve to be in bondage, but likewise we deserve to be released by the law of Jubilee. And we were never released. And they're going to pay for that. Damned any man who enslaves another man. And the book says they enslaved them to their own hurt. To their own hurt. Yahweh says he was angry with us just for a little while. But they went on and took it too far. They took it too far, and they went beyond what was called for. They didn't release you according to the laws of Jubilee, and they will pay. You know, the next Jubilee is on the atonement of September the 17th. Now, of course, we do not know all the correct times. You know, our Jewish brothers say this is the year 5782. And the reason why they say it's 5782 is because they take off 200 years because they're trying to say Shem was Melchizedek. And if Shem was Melchizedek, that means Yahweh Shua was not who he said he was. And you know our Jewish brothers do not believe that Yahweh Shua was HaMashiach. So they took 200 years off our time. We are not in 5782. We may be in 5792 or close to it. I think we're in 5972. But in the year 5972, that would mean the last Jubilee should have happened in 1999. Just like Prince said, 1999 should have been the last Jubilee. So the song was right, but you didn't get it. You didn't get it. But the Hebrew year, you know, like I said, Hebrew awareness exploded in 2009. So after 1999, you start having the use of the internet. Then we started, a few years later, people getting in their homes, and knowledge increased. Most of you are newbies. But let's look at this Jubilees, because we don't know exact times, but we do know this. Yahweh says that we're not going to always, and look at Genesis 6:3, we don't quite understand, or most people don't quite understand Genesis 6:3, when he says his spirit will not always strive with man, but the number of his days will be 120 years. That's in 6:3. He does not mean living 120 years. It is very rare for a man to live 120 years of age. What he meant was, what he said and what we didn't understand was 120 Jubilees. See, if you take 120 Jubilees, multiply that by 7, you get the year 6,000. You get 6,000. You think that's a coincidence? No, it's not. We are coming very close to the end of this world. We need to take this seriously. This broadcast, this ministry is not to be taken lightly. You don't hear me wasting time talking about a whole bunch of other stuff, not talking about what's going on currently, about police brutality and about this and about that, about cicadas and crickets or whatever the people are talking about. I ain't talking about I'm going to watch some basketball. I plan on watching some playoffs today, but I ain't in here talking about it because I know that the 120th Jubilee is upon us. We've already had 119 of them. We only got one more left. Do you think you need to wake up every morning serious? I think so. Talk about this locust. You know, we had the 17-year locust. 3 times 17 is 51. We know that the 365-day calendar is wrong. It's too long. So really, every 3 years of locusts is 50 years, really. Every 3 cycles of locusts. And I've been through the 3 cycles of locusts. Now, the next one should be in 2038, and then 2055. So that gets us to the Hebrew year of 2050. So if I'm right that we are in 5972, we got about 28 years. Now, Yahweh says that we're not going to know the date and the time of his returning, but you do know the season. If you're following these Torah portions, what did he tell you about the tent of meeting for? What is the Kodesh Moedim for? Meeting places, meeting time. Yahweh says he has an appointed meeting time to meet with him so he can tell you what's going on. He's not going to tell you the exact time, because then you can go ahead and, you know what? If you knew exactly to the second when something was going to happen, your behavior would change according to having that knowledge. That's why you're not going to be given that knowledge. But you should know the season. Otherwise, no need for him to give us all these Kodesh Moedim. There's no need for it. And the most basic one he gave us is Shabbat. It is your job to know that. And it's not to get you, when I say we have about 28 years left, that's not to get you to start conducting in a fashion to believe that. Because here's what you don't know. You don't know if you have 28 seconds left in your life. See, that Yahweh Shua comes every day. Every day a soul draws his last breath is the second coming. Every day. Because whether he comes the next day or a million years from now, the day you die is his second coming. Because the next thing you're going to know is judgment or mercy. So that way, Yahweh says we always have to live in urgency. We always have to live in urgency. You don't know when you're going to draw your last breath. That means you need to live Kodesh set apart now. Because when you draw your last breath, what does it matter if he doesn't come for a million years? Doesn't matter to you. Because the next time your eyes open is judgment or mercy. One of the two. Either you wake up for the first round, which is mercy, or the second round, which is judgment. Zechariah 10. Zechariah 10, 8 through 10. I will whistle for them and gather them, because I will redeem them, and they will increase as they once increased. I will sow them among the peoples, and they will remember me in far countries. They will live together with their children, and they will return. I will also bring them back from the land of Mizraim and gather them from Assyria. I will bring them to the land of Gilead and Lebanon until no more room is found in them. Let me continue on down to 11, the first part, and then go down to 12. Zechariah 11a and 12. He will pass through the sea with affliction and strike the waves of the sea. So, and then go down to 12. So I will strengthen them in Yahweh, and they will walk up and down in his name, says Yahweh. Now, in reading Zechariah 10, and just read just 8 through 12, read all of it. you would say there's no way that's happening now. Yahweh's name is not being used. I was there. They didn't use the name Yahweh. We even asked. My wife was asking people. They definitely didn't know his son's name. The land is not overflowing. The borders do not have to be increased. Yahweh says he's going to gather us. He didn't say the Balfour Amendment was going to bring y'all together. Yahweh says he's going to bring us together. Not the Balfour Agreement. Not some confabulation of other nations bringing his people together. Yahweh's going to do it. And he says you're going to go through dry shod. Not on no river or boat. You're going to walk there. And the border is going to be so many of us, the border is going to have to be increased. Because that little strip of land the size of New Jersey is not big enough. So obviously when you read Zechariah 10, you know that the people who are in the Kodesh land are not the people. Or that's not the land. I say it's both. It's not the people and it's not the land. And continuing on in Leviticus 25, go down to verse 10, we see that Yahweh says the 50th year is to be a set-apart year. Yovel. You have the 2 rams were sacrificed, and the 2 rams represent the original sacrifice that Yahweh made to cover up Adam and Eve. That's 4 horns. And those 4 horns are going to be blown. You read about it in the book of Revelations. It's the first 4 of the 7 horns. The first 4 horns are ram's horns from the original sacrifice that was made for Adam and Eve. Those horns are up in Hashemayim now. The last 3 are silver horns. So this Jubilee time that Yahweh is telling us about in Leviticus plays into our daily routine, into Revelations. This is important for today. This is not something to pass over. You're not supposed to just pass over the book of Leviticus and think you're going to understand the book of Revelations. You're not. Not as well. In verse 12, Yahweh is trying to get us to have faith in him as Yahweh Yireh, Yahweh provide. He said, Yahweh feeds the world. All the world looks to him for food. Because you sow your land every day dutifully and faithfully and never give her rest, that doesn't mean you provide it for yourself. The land is his. And to give you, to help increase your faith, he said, don't touch it for a whole year. And on Jubilee, let all your everything you gained over the previous 49 years, give it all back. That way there's never a Bill Gates and a broke brother like me. There's never somebody super rich and then somebody super poor in Yahweh's kingdom. Never. Because everything is given back. Everybody is equal. Everything you gain, you give back. Everything you lost, you get back. And this is faithful living. This is Jubilee. And this is what should have been done by our oppressors when they ripped down to so-called Africa and raped us and took us. They should have given us back after 50 years. They were given the liberty to do that, and we deserved it. We did not deserve, nor was it called for what we got now. Speaking the language of slavery, English, and in the name of a slavery master, Jesus. In verse 15, you sell your property according to the value of the years remaining. If you know Jubilees is up in 2 years, you don't try to get over and sell this property for more than what the 2 years value that is left on it. We have to be honest to one another. Why? Verse 17, Yahweh says, do not oppress one another because I love you. Remember, wherever he says, I am Yahweh, he's really saying, I love you. And he keeps saying this over and over and over and over and over again throughout the book of Vayikra, Leviticus. I am Yahweh. I love you. And you think you don't need to read this book? It's not important. He says that many times over and over again. He's telling you how to be set apart for him. You don't want a wife who's a hoe. You don't want a husband who's a hoe. You want to know that they're pure and clean and they are setting themselves apart just for you and no one else. Read the book. And we cannot understand this unless we having this, he has an agricultural type of thinking here, so we understand the relationship with the land. Everything he's teaching us, he does it in the terms of a family, husband, wife, and children, and the land, because these are things we understand. We have physical minds and carnal bodies. We understand we got to eat. So then we need to understand about the land. We understand you need a roof over your head. So we need to understand about the construction of a home. We understand relationships because we have children. We had a mother, a father. You have a girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, whatever. You have these things. So Yahweh speaks to us and teaches us according to that. The Bereshit, the very first word of Torah is Bereshit. The first letter is Bayet. That's the building of a home. The very first letter of the instructions of the Torah is about the house. Yahweh is teaching us about everything we need to know in a way that we should be able to understand it. Husband, wife, children, mother, father, house, land. And we're still not getting it. Living like Lot, wanting to be in the city and have the conveniences of the city. And those conveniences are set to destroy Yahweh's people. See, in verse 19 it says, I am Yahweh Yireh, I produce, the land will produce enough to have you independent from needing anybody. You should not have to import anything because the land is blessing you because you are in compliance with the instructions of Yahweh. In verse 20, you will not say, what will we eat? The poor and rich all need to eat. No matter how rich you are, you still need to eat. No matter how poor. In Yahweh's system, everybody is equal. Verse 21, that 6-year crop produces for 3 years. Enough will produce in that 6th year to feed you for 3 years. So you're not going to starve. We just need to have faith in the Most High Yah. And in verse 23, verse 24, he says you cannot sell his land permanently because the land does not belong to us. Everything you have is a gift of Yahweh, not just your stuff, but your gifts, your talents. You know, every one of us as individual on this earth, we're here for a reason. And whatever gifts, talents we have, whatever resources we have, is for his purpose. It is to edify, and it is to salt the earth with the Besorah. This is what Shavuot was all about. The world then, and since we didn't pay attention, since we don't listen to what Yahweh says, he said, okay, I'll show you better than I can tell you. So then he had the temple destroyed. About 3 years after the book of Hebrews was written. That was one of the greatest books in the entire Bible, was the book of Hebrews. And if we had understood it, and if we had gotten that aha, like we didn't get when Jeremiah 31:31 says to circumcise our hearts. So it's not about circumcising your foreskins, it's really about circumcising your heart. Same thing with the so-called New Testament, the Brit Hadashah. We need to circumcise our hearts. We need to follow this word, follow these instructions. I'm trying to stop saying law because y'all get all your panties in a bunch when I say law. So let's go with instructions because that's what they are. That if you understood this, you'll realize that we are being groomed to have faith in Yah. The land is his. All of our resources and gifts belong to him. Use it to salt the earth. And the reason why we are here salting the earth now, because in our disobedience, we got shipped out through the whole world. Otherwise, we're going to stay right there in Israel, trying to please Yahweh with our own sinful works, which are like filthy rags. And Yahweh has different rules for living in the city than he does in the country. You can read that in verse 29. And different rules for Levites than he do for the regular people. You read that in verse 32 and 33. But I do want to read Leviticus 25:35. of Wayekra. And it reads, if one of your brothers, and brethren, see that old English, to get that slavery out of them. If one of your brothers becomes poor and falls into poverty among you, then you will help him like a stranger or sojourner, that he may live with you. Now, how many of us out there can do that? See, Yahweh looks out for all of his people. And we become poor for a lot of reasons, a lot of reasons. Some of them are not our fault, but these happen. What Yahweh is saying is we should not have to worry about that. Because you have brothers and sisters out there who think like you think, who believe what you believe, who do what you do, who's supposed to have your back. We're supposed to look out for one another. And are you saying that because that's in Leviticus, that's the old covenant, we're not supposed to do that today? Is that what that is? Oh, and now here with 2021, we're in the new covenant. We don't, Jesus paid it all. So you don't have to look out for each other. So he's poor and hungry. You just keep living your best life. That's on him. Let Jesus do it for him. But his brother said, show your faith by your works. Matter of fact, let's go ahead and read some of that. John 13:34. I will get to that one. John 13:34. John 13:34. A new commandment, but let me say, a refreshed commandment I give to you, that you love one another as I loved you, and that you also love one another. That's in the Brit Hadashah, the New Covenant. He got it from the Old Testament, the Old Covenant. There was no new Bible written, New Testament. 1 John 3:23. 1 John 3:23. And this is his commandment, that we should believe on the name of his Son, Yahweh Shua HaMashiach, and love one another as he gives us commandment. See, it's a commandment. You don't like that word, but he commands us to do that. He instructs us to do that. What did Yahweh Shua's brother say in Jacob, James 2:18? This is his brother, his half-brother, his brother. James 2:18. But someone will say, you have faith and I have works. Show me your faith without your works, and I will show you my faith by my works. What he's saying is stop running your mouth. Running your mouth ain't feeding nobody. Running your mouth is not clothing nobody. Running your mouth is not covering over somebody's head. Praying for them is good. But here's something that people don't realize about prayer. Do you know when you pray for somebody, that the primary person responsible for being the answer, the physical manifestation, the physical answer to their prayer is the one giving the prayer? Aha. See, people always want to go, oh, I'm going to pray for you. Way over here, way over there. But they ain't going to the bank for you. They ain't digging their pockets for you. They ain't trying to give you nothing, but they're going to pray for you. Prayer is fine. James says, show you my faith with your works. Back it up. Back it up with something. Don't just run your mouth. And we are the best mouth runners on earth. Oh, you can just look at the social media. Nobody runs their mouth better than we do. We don't run jack but our mouths. We are mouth runningologists. We got a doctor in mouthology. Don't help nobody just running out like diarrhea. Stop it. In verse 36, he says, do not increase yourself with interest against your brother. So you say, okay, I'll go ahead and help him out, but he's going to have to pay. What? Now, Yahweh Shua, I just read that he quoted in John, John 13, about helping your brother, loving your brother. He quoted the Old Testament. He quoted Leviticus. And his brother did the same thing. Jacob, called the book of James. You don't charge your brother interest. Then he says in verse 38, I love you. See, he keeps saying these things. He's giving us these instructions because he loves us. And he always reminds us also that he brought us out of bondage. We came out of Mizraim. See, we forget where we come from. When you get a nice $500,000 house and you got a new car and you live in a gated community and you got the latest clothes and your hair looking all good and your nails done, you forget where you came from. And I don't forget where I came from. I literally knocked on doors and asked for food. Literally. For not just for me, for my 5 siblings under me. I've been fed plenty of times by Catholic charities. I've been clothed plenty of times by secondhand clothes, people giving away clothes. I don't forget where I came from. And Yahweh bless me now, and I make sure I bless others. I'm commanded to do so. Because he says, do not forget that you came out of bondage. He tells us also not to sell our brothers, because he owns us. We're not to sell our brothers and mistreat our brothers. Read this Torah portion. It's about how to treat one another. See, Yahweh says, how are you going to say you love me and you do all these things for me whom you have not seen, but you won't do the same thing for your brother or your sister who you do see? You're right there looking right at them. You ain't going to try to do nothing for them, but you claim you're going to do something for me. You don't even see me. That's running the mouth. That's just a lie. It's a lie. And we are not to lie. Verses 44 to 46, he gives us the rules of how we're supposed to treat our non-Hebrew servants. See, we're not supposed to just treat our brothers right. Anybody, you know what? Basically, someone does you good, you do them good. Well, that's easy, isn't it? That's easy. You don't take a whole lot of maturity to do that. He hook you up, you hook him up. She hook you up, you give her. She scratch your back, you scratch hers. That's easy. But what about those who despitefully use you? What about those who are trying to subvert you? Now, I'm not saying be a doormat and be a rug for everybody to walk on. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, though, our hearts are supposed to recognize who we are and what our relationship, our primary relationship is. And that relationship with Yahweh directs us in our relationship. The verticality of our relationship directs the horizontal relationships that we have. The better your vertical relationship is, the more chachma wisdom you have with your horizontal relationships. That's what I'm saying here. And then we go into verse 47. Yahweh Shua, the redemption of our poor brother, is an example that Yahweh Shua gave us. Remember, Yahweh Shua is our Gawal. He's our genetic redeemer. And during his 3.5 years of ministry, he was homeless. He slept right under that almond tree that he was going to sacrifice himself on. Right on that almond tree. That's where he slept. And he wore his same clothing. He ate whatever he could get. He was our example. In verse 47, talks about, again, how we're supposed to treat our non-Hebrew brothers. In verse 48, how we're supposed to redeem our brothers, so help our brothers out. See, what it talks about is, it's easy to help a brother before he goes into bankrupt than it is after he's bankrupt. See, after he's bankrupt, there's more legalities, more hoops, and it's more difficult to dig somebody out of a hole. It's easy to help keep them from falling into a hole. So that's what it talks about in verse 48. And then in verse 50, about giving the fair market price for even your the non-Hebrew brothers, having integrity. It talks about integrity. Talks about, and the thing about why we're supposed to have integrity with our non-Hebrew brothers is because of this. We have a lot of people out there who give the Hebrew a bad name. They give a bad name with how they cursing the Jew man, cursing the white man, beating their chest about being black Hebrew Israelites and all this, where nowhere in the Bible, nowhere in the Torah tells you that you're black as a group of people. No, he identifies you as through your father. You're not identified by the skin color. You have nothing to do with your skin color. You're identified by your relationship with him, by his name, by your forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who happens to be melanated peoples, but that is not what makes you get into the kingdom. And see, again, like I said, most of you didn't come into this thing no later than 2009. You're new, you're babies, and you're still in that angry stage, and then you go to that depression stage. You need to grow up and get to the working stage of knowing that, hey, the future's set. Yahweh Yireh, Yahweh's providing for us. We're coming to the last Jubilee. We've already done 119 Jubilees. There's only one left. You're still out there cursing somebody because he's white? You're still out there rioting and getting flat screen TVs? Has nothing to do with the man who was done injustice. Out there rioting, breaking up stuff, burning up stuff. Ain't got nothing to do with that man being killed. How about helping his family? How about, doing some real work? Some real stuff that causes you to sacrifice something. We need to stop it. It's easy. A little 2-year-old can be angry and break something, kick something. It is immature and unimaginative for you to be unrighteously angry. It is immature, elementary, and unimaginative. What takes maturity and what takes Ruach HaKodesh and righteousness is doing something meaningful and constructive when you're angry, when you've been done wrong, when your brother needs help, or when someone who's not your brother needs help. It takes a relationship with Yahweh, and that's what and this is why this is towards the end of the book of this letter of Vayikra, of Leviticus. Next week is the last Torah portion in Vayikra. Yahweh's not going to bring us to the land of milk and honey without first telling us how to live when we get to the land of milk and honey. All right here, he's teaching us how we're supposed to conduct ourselves. So you don't go in there and cutting the fool. You know how they say when somebody hits the lottery and they go and buy themselves $1 million house in the neighborhood, there goes the neighborhood. See, as soon as you get ninjas in the neighborhood, there goes the neighborhood. Grass ain't going to be right. See, because you got money, don't change how you are. We have to change how we are on the inside. Having the wealth, having the resources doesn't change who the person is. You can go in there, you're going to be partying, blasting music 2 o'clock in the morning. The neighborhood wasn't like that before. You got your black assets in there. Now you're not going to take care of your lawn. Children run all around like baby's kids, tearing up stuff. Or you're going to conduct yourself righteously. Act like you've been there before. Act like you got some sense. Conduct yourself in a manner that's representing. Represent. It was 6 of us growing up, and we didn't represent our parents properly when we going there and graffitiing up the school and not going to school and all that. Yeah, we were poor, but still we were taught with some kind of values. You got to represent your father. And it goes on and says in verse 53, talks about how we are forbidden from seeing our brother being mistreated and not helping out. And who is our brother? Esau. Let's see this. Let's see how Esau did. Let's go to Obadiah 11 through 14. This is the book, I'm telling you. A lot of people don't want to read this one because it condemns them. Those who don't look like you, it condemns them. This book, Obadiah, one chapter, one letter, and non-Hebrews don't like to read this one. But I'm going to show you what they did to you in violating the laws of how you're supposed to treat your brother. Which really, the Noahide laws, see, Yahweh has a covenant people. And his covenant is with only his people. And so what about those who are not in covenant? They still have the Noahide laws. Yahweh has to have a way where he's going to judge people. If he has no covenant with you, then he has no reason, no right to judge you. But you still have to go by the Noahide laws. It doesn't matter what you believe. You still know you're not supposed to just walk in somebody's house and take their TV and walk out. It don't matter what you believe, what faith you are. You know that's wrong. You're not supposed to just go ahead and take somebody's wife and go ahead and have your way with her and then go and leave her. You know that. You know you're supposed to feed your children. It has nothing to do with believing in the Bible. It has nothing to do with believing in Yahweh. You're supposed to feed your children. You're supposed to go to work and do your job. You're not supposed to steal from your boss. You're not supposed to just get in your car, get high, drink, and drive all and just break all up. That has nothing to do with religion. The Noahide laws covers all that. But this Torah is for Yahweh's covenant peoples. It's a high order. And let's read Obadiah 11 through 14 for my last scripture for this today. In the day that you stood on the other side, this is admonition against Esau. In the day that strangers carried captive his forces, when foreigners entered his gates, talking about entering our gates, and cast lots for Jerusalem, even you were as one of them. But you should not have gazed on the day of your brother in the day of his captivity, nor should you have rejoiced over the children of Yehuda in the day of their destruction, nor should you have spoken proudly in the day of distress. You should not have entered the gate of my people in the day of their calamity. Indeed, you should not have gazed on their affliction in the day of their calamity, nor laid hands on their substance in the day of their calamity. You should not have stood at the crossroads to cut off those among them who escaped, nor should you have delivered up those among them who remained in the day of distress. That's what your brother Esau did. See, he stood aside. He didn't help us. And it's okay he didn't help us, but he was not supposed to also be part of the problem, block us off from escaping and get, he did us wrong. And this transatlantic slave trade was wrong. Those who sponsored it and those who did it, and those who kept it going, and those who perpetuated it. That's why Yahweh says, happy is he that dashes your children on the rock, because payday is coming. And like I said, you're not supposed to just lay down and be a mat for everybody. But you're supposed to do unto others as you have them do unto you. That's what you're commanded to do. So next week is Torah portion number 33, Bakukotaya. It is the last Torah portion of Wayekra, and it means by my decrees. So start reading now. It's Leviticus 26:3 through the end of the book, which is 27:34. Yahweh with you here, Yahweh for Christians. Shalom Aleichem, peace be on you. Hit it, Ibar.
Reach the heavens, though it was dark, they couldn't hide that.